Not long ago, I discovered this really cool trick, and as soon as I read it, I thought, this is absolutely genius. I've got to try this out, and if it works, I've got to share it. So that's what I'm doing here today. I was on Mike Holt's electrical forum, and this user by the name of Jay Fletcher talked about his process for how he wires up new work electrical boxes, and this applies to old work as well. If you're just swapping out maybe an outlet or a light switch, it works for any of those sorts of things. What it's going to do is it's going to make the whole process quite a bit faster for you, and more importantly, it's going to make it so much more comfortable. And this will make more sense as we go along. And I'm one of these guys, I'm all about comfort. I want to be a little bit lazy sometimes if that doesn't affect the quality of something. And if you have one of those Wall-E floating, lounge chair things, I'm down with that. Sign me up for one of those. So this will help you quite a bit to do the process a lot faster. The other thing I want to share with you is at the end, I'm going to show you that this already fast process, I've got two tips. One that's going to make it even faster still. And the second one that is, I've never seen anybody do this before. And it's just a way to be a little bit safer, a little technique that I came up with that I think will work wonderfully inside your electrical box. So again, credit to Jay Fletcher for sharing this idea with us on the forum. And I'll put a link to that discussion if you want to check that out in the description below. When you're doing finish electrical on new construction like this, or even on older construction too, you're typically going to have an open box with either one or two wire sets coming out of each single gang box like this one. Of course, if you have multi-gang boxes, you're going to have more wires. Now, this technique I'm about to show you works for both electrical receptacles and light switches like I mentioned. And normally at this point, when I've got these wires here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my tool belt, I'm going to go to each box, I'll pull the wires, I'm going to cut them to the right length, I'll strip the Romex jacket off, I'll strip the appropriate amount of insulation on each wire, on your neutral, your hot, and your ground, and then I'm going to begin the process of either pigtailing the wires together for each outlet, or if the occasion requires it, I might wire them directly to the outlet or the light switch, depending on the circumstance. Now, at that point, I would then stand, or oftentimes, honestly, squat at 1 foot off the ground, working on these little 12-inch off-the-ground receptacles, and I would add a hook to every wire, fasten it to the terminals on the outlet, and fasten all the wires to each other using Wagos, ideal lever nuts, or just good old-fashioned wire nuts. I highly recommend avoiding those backstab connectors on the back, but that's a topic for another day. Now, all of this would need to be done at the receptacle itself, which by itself is pretty uncomfortable. It's time-consuming, the lighting's typically not going to be ideal, and the angles you have to work at are almost never going to be ideal or sufficient for being comfortable on the job while you're getting all these things wired up. So that little trick that Jay Fletcher shows us takes care of this. Now, in his post, I learned that because of how quickly and easily Wagos can be connected, they make it so that we can actually pre-wire all of our outlets and switches with pigtails somewhere comfortable, like at a well-lit workbench, for example, like this one. And then you can install them quickly and easily at each box in just a matter of seconds. Pretty beautiful. So I decided to give this a try, and just to be clear, there's really no avoiding doing some level of work here at the box. That's just inevitable. So you're going to have to still find ways to do that. I will say though, if you have 12-2 or 14-2 Romex, I discovered these little beauties here. These are from Southwire, and they're box jaw wire strippers, and they actually allow you to grab the 12-2 or 14-2 right up inside the box and get it stripped there really easily. They work really well. They get just enough so that you can grab right up near the knockouts, and it just makes that whole thing a lot easier than trying to strip all the way up or tear it and cut it and all that kind of thing. They actually also have 12 and 14 gauge wire strippers built right into them here, but I still prefer to use my Kinepex, and yes, that's how they actually say it in their own videos.
Kinepex.
These Kinepex wire strippers, and they make it really easy. Now at this point, Jay Fletcher actually recommends that in order to keep continuity between your different boxes in case one gets missed or drywalled over, which is not usually an issue, but it could be, he applies the Wago 221s directly to the wires at the box, as opposed to applying them to the wires on the outlet or the switch. So if you have 2 of each wire plus the pigtail to connect, these little 3-port connectors work just great. And if you only have 1 wire plus a pigtail, you can get away with a 2-port connector as well. Notice that we haven't actually had to deal with shepherd's hooks, screws, screwdrivers, or anything but wire and jacket strippers while at the box. That is pretty slick. We're not really having to do much here. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Now with that, your box prep is all done. With the prep here all done, this is typically the part on new construction where your drywall team and the painters come in, and then you come back after the fact. And obviously if you're doing existing work, then it's just a matter of moving on to the next step from there. You might be surprised that I'm actually in my 13th year of making DIY videos here on YouTube, and I have been having a blast the whole time, and one of my goals this year is to actually hit that 1 million subscriber mark. I typically don't care that much about subscribers. It's kind of a vanity metric in some ways, but I'm just like, all right, it's time. I'm ready. I want to get this. So if you want to help me out by hitting that subscribe button down below, it would make all the difference to me. And I think we're going to hit it. With your help, we can definitely get there. So if you don't, that's totally fine. What I really want is for you to get some value out of this video and for this to be something that teaches you and helps you to feel a little bit more empowered and emboldened to go do something that you might not otherwise have done or to do it a little bit better. So thanks so much for subscribing if you already have, and for new subscribers as well. Totally appreciate that. And anyway, I guess I'll get back to the video now. So back here, we're ready to get to the finished electrical, the actual wiring up of the outlets and switches and their cover plates. Really doesn't get much easier. I can now sit down at my workbench in my shop or at the kitchen table, wherever you want, and wire up all of those outlets. Because of that comfortable setup and having control over the lighting, it's way easier for me to make sure every wire is appropriately fastened to the terminal screws, that the screws are properly tightened, and that those outlets are ready to go. I'm not gonna do a shoddy, quick job just to get it done because I'm uncomfortable, right? I'm running a simple pigtail wire for the hot, the neutral, and the ground of each one. Everything is stripped to the ideal length, and you're ready to go. Now, if you're using side wire outlets like these, where you can just insert the stripped wire into the plate on the back, that's even easier. You don't even have to bend those shepherd's hooks in the wires. Easier still is using the Leviton Decora Edge outlets that don't even require screws or a screwdriver. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than this. And as always, I'll put links to everything you see in the video in the description below. And you can also check out that little shopping bag icon down in the lower left corner of your screen. Now, if you're watching this on a TV, I'll also add this QR code that you can see on screen to learn more about where these products are available for you. Now, for the fun part. As I head out to the job site, whether that's in your house or on a job site at a customer's site, all you have to do is grab your pre-wired outlets one at a time, connect the exposed pigtails for the hots, neutrals, and grounds to the pre-wired WAGOs, and the wiring is done. From there, I just fold the wiring into the box, drive the 2 screws of the outlet into the box, put on a cover plate, and donezo.
Don't be a barbarian, straighten up those screw heads. Are you team vertical or team horizontal? Let us know in the comments.
This method isn't just useful for new installs either. Let's say you're upgrading a house from an old cream colored outlet to the newer white ones. All you have to do is a bit of prep of each box as you remove the old ones, and then you can use your already prepped new outlets or switches to make quick work of the swap. And by the way, I'm noticing that sometimes we're seeing the cream come back into color, and I'm not a big fan of that, but I suppose it's inevitable. It all goes in a cycle. I don't know if you're seeing that. Let me know if you guys are a fan of those creamy, kind of yellowish colored outlets and switches or not. I'm not, but that's here nor there. That process I showed is both way easier than doing all of this work here at the box, and it allows me to make sure I'm doing a quality job with each outlet in a comfortable and well-lit environment. I love it. Now, early in the video, I promised you 2 extra tips and tricks to do things faster and safer. You may have actually noticed that I've been doing one of these all along. The first is that you can save even more time with WAGOs or ideal lever nuts by never lifting the levers. They really don't need that for solid wires. Stranded wires, whole different story, you gotta lift up that lever. But for solid wires, you can literally just push that wire right in. It saves just a few seconds for every connection, but that adds up over time. This is, of course, ideal for 12 and 14 gauge wires, but that's the most common use for these sorts of connectors anyway. Hey, I've been working on something really cool behind the scenes, and it has to do with just what you're watching right now. Knowing how to do the basics of electrical around the house. If you're a homeowner, you should know a little bit about plumbing, a little bit about HVAC, electrical, your drywall, all that good stuff. If you want to learn a little bit more about what I've been working on and get early access to that, head on over to powerhomeowner.com, enter your email, and I'll keep you posted and in the loop. Thanks so much. The other tip has to do with a concern a lot of people have raised about the possibility of the lever handles coming up and them getting snagged while being pushed into the box or perhaps while being serviced. And this applies to both WAGOs and ideal lever nuts, just different directions. While this is absolutely a possibility, to me, it honestly feels so incredibly unlikely that I'm not sure how much anyone really needs to worry about that. That said, if you are concerned or there's a situation where it makes more sense, some have suggested that you can wrap some levers with electrical tape. Now, this will certainly secure the levers, but I also think it takes away 2 of the main benefits of WAGOs, which is 1, having a transparent housing where you can see that the wires are set properly, and then number 2, being able to quickly unlatch the terminals and remove the wires. So while there's not much you can do about the second issue, I do think it makes sense to only wrap the bottom portion of the lever nut so that you can still see the connections inside, and you can also add a bit of strain relief to the wires at the same time. By no means a perfect solution to this issue, but if you've got a very full box or the circumstance requires it, then this could provide some peace of mind for you. Now, when it comes to using your wire strippers for this process, I found that a lot of DIYers aren't actually familiar with all of the features built into their wire strippers. There's quite a bit going on here. So my question is, are you? You can click on this video right here to find out. I'm Nils with Learn to DIY. Thanks for watching.